Welcome to the first video in Section 2. In this video, we'll be creating the skeleton for our project using an NPM module called Create React App. We'll start by building our app from scratch. For this, I'm going to need the terminal, and I'm going to need to install the Create React App node module. So to do this, just type in npm install -g, since this is going to be a global installation, and then create React App. Now, since it's global, if you're on Linux or on the Mac, you're going to need to add sudo to the front of this command. If you're on Windows, you don't need to do that. With that typed in, I'll just go ahead and press enter. I'll type in my password. And after a minute or so, Create React App will be installed. Once it's installed, I can go ahead and create my app. To do this, type in Create React App, Create React App, and then give it the name of the folder where you'd like to store your project. In this case, I'm going to call mine React Strap Course. I'll press enter, and Create React App will go to work. This is probably going to take 3 or 4 minutes. Create React App does more than just generate the starting point for us. It also configures a lot of the underpinnings for how the development environment works. It's going to set up Webpack, Babel, and a host of other packages that we'd normally have to spend a lot of time and energy configuring. Create React App handles this for us. Naturally, though, we're giving something up. We won't be able to customize our Webpack script, but for most apps, you probably don't need to, and that's certainly the case with ours. Once the create process is finished, you'll see a success message, and you'll have a shiny, brand new React app. Why don't we take a look at some of the files and the project structure we just generated? I'll go ahead and launch Visual Studio Code. Why don't we take a look at some of the files and the project structure we just generated? I'll go ahead and launch Visual Studio Code. Once it fires up, I'll select File, Open Folder. Now, if you're on a Mac, it just says Open. There isn't Open File and Open Folder on the Mac, it's just Open. But for the rest of us, it's Open Folder. This will drop me into my home folder, and I can see there's React Strap Course right there, so I'll select it and click OK. And now I just need to open up the pane over here on the side. Just in case it isn't on yours, you can toggle this by clicking this button right here, on and off. This allows you to see the structure of the files that are in your project. The files here are pretty common to any React app, but in case this is your first React app, I'll go ahead and take you through a short tour. React apps always have a package.json file. The contents of the package.json file are designed to hold all of the metadata for your project. In this case, it holds the name, the version, any dependencies. It has a section here for different scripts, which we'll take a look at a little bit later, and any other configuration requirements that might be needed by the application. The dependencies section shows that we have 3 dependencies here: React, React DOM, and React scripts. In a Node application, the dependencies are stored in the Node modules folder. You generally don't need to go into this folder and edit anything. This is just where all your modules are. In fact, if you're using Git, you don't want to include Node modules in your repository. And in fact, we have a git ignore file that was generated for us, and that automatically excludes Node modules. The other file here is the package.lock.json file. This is another file that you don't mess with. This contains the data for the inner workings of our dependency tree. Create React App also generates a really nice Readme file for us. You should take a look at this. There are a lot of really good resources listed in here. It's a fairly long file, and there are lots of links and lots of different tutorials and documentation. All of that is listed in here. It also gives you some basic instructions for some of the basic commands that we saw listed in that package.json file. But we'll get to those a little bit later. If I look at the source folder, this is where my app actually lives. So the code for my application is going to be built here in source. There's also a public folder that's designed to hold static assets like basic HTML files, CSS files, icons, images, that sort of thing all go up in public. Since Create React App has created a project structure for us and all of the basic files needed, why don't we take it for a spin? You can actually run your application. All you need to do is start it up in a terminal. I could switch back to the terminal that I used to run Create React App, but I'm in Visual Studio Code and it has its own terminal window built into it. I can press Control and then tilde, and that will bring up my terminal window. In case you're not familiar with what a tilde is, it's kind of a little squiggly mark next to the 1 key on your keyboard. From here, all I need to do is type in npm start. This is actually documented right there on line 7 of the Readme file that's currently open. So npm start. As soon as I press enter, it's going to go ahead and compile my application. And then it will launch the default browser. And after a short minute or two, we should have a working app up and running that we can play around with.